Are you ready? Okay. So would you ask your question again for those people who weren't here and as a reminder to the rest of us?
The question is, can you please tell us something about all is unreal and all is the self?
Yes. Thank you. All is unreal and all is the self. These two tenets of Advaita seem to be playing into the whole idea of duality, don't they? But in truth, what's being pointed out here are actually two aspects of different personalities and what suits them in terms of sadhana or inquiry. When it's said that all is unreal, the deeper meaning of that is that if you look, right, into the idea that I am the body, which is where most of us start, with the idea I am the body, or I am the mind, or I am the emotions, or I am the experiences of life that I'm experiencing in my daily experience. If you look into any one of those, and really look deeply, and we'll use the idea that I am the body to illustrate this. If you look very deeply for this I, which resides in the body, as long as the idea that I am the body is there, then you can ask the question, where is this I? Where is it located? Is it located in the mind? Is it located in the brain? Is it located in the body? Is it located in the sensations? And so on. And of course, finding nothing, no I, no definitive I, you can keep looking. Well, where is this? Where is this going? You know, you can look through the subtle mind states. You can look in all of these places, and everywhere you look, you find nothing. This is also true in science, isn't it? If you look into the body just as a physical thing, into a chair, what you find, according even to science, is that there is no definitive thing in what appears to be real. So if you look more and more deeply into the body, you see that the body is composed of organs and systems and so on. And if you look deeper than that, you see that there are cells. If you look deeper than that, then you find molecules and atoms and things like this. And by the time you get here, you realize, according to science and according to experience, there is mostly space. There really isn't anything solid. It's space. So then the question can rise naturally, what is this body? What is this mind? What is all of this? You know, there's something appears to be here. You can't deny that experience. And science even tells us it's mostly space. And investigation through the inquiry tells us it's entirely space. So all we can really say about it, in truth, is that it's unreal. It doesn't have any basis in anything. But what it is compressed energy, right? We can say this about it. And the way in which the energy is compressed determines what we see, what we're looking at, whether it's a body or a chair or whatever. But going to these deep investigative levels using the inquiry, we see that nothing really exists. Nothing is here, except space and consciousness. And ultimately, when we go through this kind of reductionist, kind of scientific method way of dealing with what we think is real, we come to understand that there is only consciousness here, and it is the foundation on which all of that is rising, right? And that perception, if you will, of form is really just compressed energy or consciousness compressed. Therefore, it can be said, everything is unreal. Similarly, having gone into this investigation, one eventually does come to the direct perception. All of this is that. Meaning, that consciousness, which when everything else is lost, everything else is gone, everything else is penetrated and seen through into empty space, there's nothing here, and yet, I. This consciousness is then realized and recognized to be the foundation of everything that is. And one other name for this consciousness, or this supreme, is God. Whether you believe in God or not is not important if you do the inquiry. You will return to this space of empty cognition, we can say. And in that moment, you will realize, I was never the body, never the mind, never the experiences. I am that which is aware. In that recognition, this I-ness disappears or begins to dissolve, so that there is only this recognition that awareness itself is here, and that is the foundation of everything. So whether you call that awareness the supreme or consciousness really doesn't matter. And what Vedanta says about, Advaita says about consciousness itself, is that if you step beyond consciousness, which is the most subtle perception of all that you can have in the waking state, then what is there? This is referred to as Brahman. Brahman has absolutely no characteristics, not even the consciousness characteristic. Okay? And in coming from or out of, let's say, that state, one can see that everything is God, everything is consciousness, all is Brahman. So this is the foundation of these two tenets of non-duality, which seem dual, don't they? Yes.
Thank you so much. It's clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good.
Yesterday you described the method of self-inquiry and the I dissolving in complete awareness, right? And you also described the gaps between the thoughts, or you mentioned them.
The what within the thoughts?
The gaps between the thoughts.
Ah, yes, the gap.
Right?
Yes.
And these gaps are also pure awareness, right?
Yes.
If you would focus on these gaps and make this larger and larger and expand it and be able to abide there in that awareness, aren't you then not surpassing the I thought? And I mention this because according to Ramana, it's very important to let the I thought, the I, dissolve in awareness, right?
Yes.
But if you go straight into the awareness through the gap expansion, then you surpass the I thought and there's still the I.
Are you speaking of this having thought about it, or from your own experience?
No, I've been thinking about it.
Uh-huh. Yes, I can tell.
Because the Vedanta protocol, let's put it that way, is that you have to dissolve the I thought in order to destroy the ego, right?
Yes, this is the thinking around it. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm really going to encourage you to understanding what you understand, which is a very firm foundation in the teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Now I encourage you to not not really even investigate the gap, but rather begin to notice that even if the I thought is there, between one I thought and another I thought, there's an empty space. Fall into it. This is more of an allowing than an investigation. And the reason that I encourage you to do that is because this is the place in which not I dissolve the I, but the I dissolves. This is a different experience than I am going to dissolve the I. To say I, and I understand that this is the way it comes across sometimes in the teaching, in the way that it's written, and the way that we can understand it with the mind. But for the I to try to dissolve the I is to send a thief to catch a thief. It's never going to happen. That identity is going to stay there. So that's why it's encouraged to notice that between this thought and that thought, there is a gap. Even if I say to you, are you aware? You say, right now, are you? Yes. Between are you aware, the question, and yes, the answer, which is registered in the mind and spoken with the body, there is a gap. There is a space where there is nothing there but pure awareness. There is no sense of I, and there is no question. Are you aware? Yes.
Yes.
In that small gap, there is pure awareness. Falling into that dissolves the I and leaves only awareness. Not I am aware, awareness which is aware.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
Bhagavan said, as long as there is a sense of I-ness, ask the question, who am I? Yes? This was his guide. He said, once there is no more I, so he pointed directly to this dissolution of the I. Once there is no more felt sense of I, then the question is not necessary anymore.
Okay. Then I have one other question.
Good.
Papaji proclaimed to just be quiet.
Yes.
And then you also sink into this awareness.
Yes.
But to the experience of, I've never met these people, and not Papaji either, but it was said that if you follow that procedure, that method, the ego is never destroyed, and people are have become realized or awakened in following these steps. They always are pulled back by the ego again. And so maybe they can be awakened for a year or half a year, whatever. They are always pulled back by the ego. And that gave me the idea, the thought that, well, if you don't follow these steps according to Ramana, then you surpass the ego, go directly into awareness, and you don't destroy the ego. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
And so that is my worry, that I invest a lot of time in something that's not working on the long run.
Whose time is it?
Okay, I know. Now I have to put that question, right? Yes.
Well, understand what you're actually saying about something, which is you're standing on a belief that has no foundation. It's made of sand. So this is why we ask the question, whose time is it? Because all of these questions, this worry that I can get it wrong, I can do the wrong thing, I can spend a lot of time and invest a lot of time in in this process and ultimately not succeed. Understand that this very thought, this complex of thoughts, if you will, this conditioned complex of thoughts, this is what prevents you from simply being here now in the direct perception, the direct answer to the question, are you aware? Yes. And just remaining there. All of your concern and so on comes only after the recognition of, or perception of, direct perception of awareness itself. All of it comes after that. So the inquiry is always going to lead you back to what is before these questions rise in the mind. Right? So, if you, in order to move forward from this kind of, we can say doubt, or this kind of concern, I would say to you, put these doubts and concerns at the feet of the Master. Meaning, you can benefit greatly from a little bit of faith, or a lot of faith, in the teaching that says, if you put these concerns down, if you put this doubt down, you will understand. This is why Papaji said, just keep quiet. When he said, just be quiet, he did not mean sit in your chair, being quiet on the outside and thinking these thoughts. He meant, keep quiet. No thinking. The way that Bhagavan said to come to this particular way of being is every time a thought arises, understand that nothing is going to be resolved by thinking, and say, who is this thinker? To whom does this thought come? And then investigate. Go back to the source of being, consciousness and bliss. You will find nothing in any, well, you might support yourself tentatively. You might find a little something, a little comfort in saying, I want to be sure that I don't spend a lifetime doing this and not get anywhere, you know. But understand that kind of concern, that kind of tendency, that kind of mind space is really the block. That is the block.
Doubt.
Yes.
The doubt.
Yes, doubt. And the only way to come around that doubt is to put faith in the Master, put faith in the teaching. Surrender everything. This doubt especially. And that doubt may not be eradicated the first time. You may have to put this doubt down many, many times.
It's also spoken about that you have to dispassionate your strong vasanas, right?
You have to say again?
To dispassionate or dispassionate.
Yes, you have to be dispassionate toward your vasanas. Is that what you mean?
Well, you have to purify them first before you really permanently can enter that space.
Okay.
Right?
But the question is not whether the vasanas are purified. The question is who is going to do anything. You know, I'm trying to continue to point you toward this tendency that you're talking about, that you have to want to be the one who does something. So, tendencies, vasanas, purify themselves in the space of awareness. Let the awareness do the work. Don't claim that I am the one who is doing the work. You are the one who is doing the work. This is not necessary. This adds another layer of control, me needing to do it. This is another form of that doubt. It's a more subtle form. The truth, the understanding of this in truth is that there are no vasanas. There are no tendencies. There are only beliefs that there are vasanas and beliefs that there are tendencies. This is the belief in the unreal that we spoke about a minute ago. Find, through the inquiry, is there any truth to the ideas that you have? You will find no, there's no idea, there's nothing here. Papaji also said this, there's nothing here. The reason he said there is nothing here is not because awareness isn't here as being consciousness. It's because there is nothing here which has a self-nature independent of awareness itself. And if you come to awareness itself, that which is aware is here now. There is simply no need for a me, an I, for all this doubt, for all this thinking. It's just not necessary. If you eliminate everything that the mind is worried about, trying to control and trying to dance with, so on, you see that there is nothing here but awareness itself. That which is aware is here. Now all of these doubts and fears about I might do this for 10 years and not get anywhere, that's what dissolves, and this is dissolution of the I. Yes, because the I is what is there before all of these manifestations of conditioning follow the I in the mind. If you don't follow the I in the mind, then you come back to this position or this recognition, that which is aware is here now. And this by itself is the purification of the tendencies.
Yes.
And this is what dispassion toward the tendencies does. And this is the foundation of in the teaching of neti neti. Not this, not this. I am not this, I am not this. This cultivates dispassion toward the tendencies.
Yes, that's what I meant.
Yes.
You have to go through that process first, right?
Well, I mean, I understand you're saying you have to go through it.
Okay.
I know how it appeared for me, and I know how it appears for most people, and I trust Bhagavan's teaching, and I know that probably if I went around the room, every mind in this room would go, yes, I have to go, not this, right? So this is very common, but I don't know that it's necessary for everyone to do it.
Okay.
It's more necessary to recognize these principles, put faith in the principles, put the tendencies at the feet of the master, and keep coming to this recognition that which is aware is here now. Take the fast route. Don't go the long way around through the mind's structure. This is what Bhagavan meant when he said the mind is like a castle full of soldiers. When the gate opens and a soldier comes out, cut it down each time, right? This is also what Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj meant when he said, do you need to go through your trash before you throw it out? No. You simply go and throw the trash out. Same principle. This is dispassion toward the tendencies. Don't go through the garbage. Which is a big tendency, especially in the West, right? We depend heavily on the psychological model. And this model says, let's go back through all of the, let's understand where the trash came from.
That's also not what I mean.
Yeah, I know that's not what you mean. I say that for the benefit of others. Yeah. So, yeah, just keep going on the inquiry. Increase your level of faith in the master and the faith in the teaching of inquiry. And all of this that we're talking about now is going to dissolve very quickly for you, along with that doubt.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. That was a nice follow-up.
Sorry.
We're coming back. We have another follow-up
Okay.
from the first one.
Sorry. Again,
Welcome.
to this self. Self, I know as being consciousness or awareness and bliss. Did you just say there is something beyond that? I call this also God or whatever you call it.
Being consciousness or God, yes.
Yes.
This is true in the tradition, yes.
Mm-hmm. But did you just say that there's something beyond that? I thought this is the ground, the basis.
Well, according to the traditions in Vedanta, right, even consciousness itself, which has the ability to recognize itself in the waking state of awareness, there is something beyond, and that something is indescribable, undefinable, and so on. And that word that is used is Brahman.
Okay.
That which has no foundation, no basis, no nothing, cannot be experienced or even in the waking state.
Okay. Okay.
Or even through intense practice. This is the foundation of what we might say life itself. Not just here, life itself in our lives, not just life itself on the planet, life itself in the macro, you know.
I didn't know this. Thank you.
This is just a small... People get confused about what's the difference between Brahman and consciousness.
Yes.
And so there is only this tiny little difference. So we don't really talk about it that much or emphasize it that much.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, I began the last satsang when there was the drumming all the time.
Yes.
I tried to remember that I am silence.
Yes.
And even the last time I noticed that the fear is arising. Today I try to do the same, like, okay, if I am silence. And also I have like somewhere here is, I think I'm hiding that sense of fear and it's all the time there, and I would like to look more deeply into the sense of fear and what can it be there.
So again, this is based more on a Western psychological model. I would like to look into this fear and know what is there and so on. Both the Buddha and Sri Ramana essentially said there is no way to ever end that kind of a search, because we have no way of knowing what the causes and conditions of any particular experience that we're having, whether it's in the sphere-based situation that you're pointing to, or whether it's the experience of life itself. And so what can happen is that we can spend lifetimes, if not eternity, looking for the causes and conditions of a particular rising in this moment. And the way that this is undermined, both in the Buddha's teaching and in Sri Ramana's teaching, is with this dispassionate looking at the vasana and saying, this is fear, but there's not any interest in this. If there's no interest in this, it's just an object in awareness. And so we then can ask ourselves, what is aware of this? What is aware of this fear? This is the question which will unravel the fear. What is this fear? We'll just perpetuate it. Because you can, it's like a big ball of yarn, right? You know yarn? Yeah. So you can look at a ball of yarn and you can spend your life twisting it and turning it, trying to find the end that where you see it, you can pull it. But then when you start to pull it, the ball of yarn just keeps getting tighter and tighter and tighter. You don't actually undo the yarn. You don't actually open it up. You don't actually allow the light into it. You make it more and more difficult. This is the principle behind. Don't look for the source of the fear. Notice that fear is here, definitely. Feel what that feels like in the body. You can stand in it, be present in it. But the inquiry is, who or what is aware of this fear? Don't tug on the thread or tug on the yarn, because what will happen is you will tighten the ball that you're calling fear.
So, when awareness is aware...
When?
Awareness is aware.
Yes. When awareness is aware.
And then it can be aware for some time, but the body calls you back. Maybe you need the toilet, maybe you need a drink, or maybe the mind calls you back, like last time.
Yes.
You were saying about these insights, maybe the mind starts to pull
Yes,
you.
it can be a vasana, it can be an insight, it can be anything, yes. Something will call you back out of pristine or untainted awareness, we can say. Naked awareness, yes.
And then when I comes back and you come back to this being, then my mind starts to wonder why we come back. If it's bliss and you can rest there for some time, then you come back to the body and the mind, and they feel very useless. You want to throw them away and stay.
Yes.
But I feel we've been born with these things, so we have to live with them peacefully as much as possible.
Good idea.
So you go and you remember and you come down with a bit more remembering and open-heartedness and something, but I don't know exactly what my question is, but what to do when you come down.
So this answer to this question, the question is what to do when you come back from this open state of pristine awareness and you find yourself back in the body as a you, as a me. The answer is really the same. Yes? The answer is really the same. Understand that what you're looking at now is not me. What I'm looking at now is a tendency or a vasana. I have no control over this vasana at the moment, right? I have no control over this tendency. What I mean by that is you came into this life with this body out of the coming together of a set of tendencies. And they give you this parabdha karma, it's called in Vedanta. They give you this sense of parabdha karma, which is what the body has to work out in this life. If you come back and you attach to the I am the body idea, then you stay involved in that, right? You keep coming back to this sense of doubt. You keep coming back to this sense of uncertainty. You keep coming back to there is an I, there is a you, there is a she, there is a he, this sense of separation. You keep doing this over and over and over. All we know is this is the tendency. That's all we know. And it seems to be pretty universal. Yeah. Until this moment of recognition that I am not this, I am not this, I am not this. And so this is why we move toward this dispassion. We move toward this dispassion because we know that to solve the riddle of how is this happening, why is this happening, why do I keep going into space and coming, going into freedom and coming back again. That's, again, this ball of twine. We are just going to try to pull it, and all we're going to do is make that knot tighter and tighter. So, if you understand, again, this is that element of faith. If you follow the teaching, if you know in the teaching that what it says is that this vasana cannot be understood through its own power. It has to be understood through dispassion, through persistence. It has to be understood as not this, not this, not this. Then you have the possibility that at some moment, while you are there in that space of awareness itself, which is naked, untroubled, aware, that the grace of the Supreme, or Brahman, or consciousness itself, will flood into being, and the game is over. What I would like to point out to you is that for some reason, you have been brought here to hear this and to have the opportunity in this life to use this time wisely. And even if this movement and stillness appears, and this does happen, right? I mean, we do have the models of Shiva and Shakti. So there is stillness and there is movement. And as long as this movement is going on, the possibility that you will stay in that dance is still going on. But at some point, it may come that you understand something about who you are, and you will stop identifying with stillness and movement. Stillness and movement will still go on, because they are in the world, they are in the movement of the vasanas, they are in the movement of Even the Supreme is moving through life as alternating stillness and movement. If you take away the identification with whether stillness is here or movement is there, something else, which is usually called grace, has the opportunity to flood your recognition. You have been brought here for this purpose. So, I suggest to you, when I look in your eyes, that you are returning to this. This is not new to you. You are returning to it. So, put some faith in the teaching of the Master. Let this apparent movement between stillness and movement in life happen while asking the question, what is aware of this? Who am I? What is this I that perceives any of this? And slowly you'll see that pendulum swing begins to slow. And eventually it will center itself in non-identification, in being consciousness. And then the dance will just continue on via the parabdha karma of the body. The body will have to live out its destiny, but no trouble.
Hello.
Hello.
I guess this is a follow-up to the point 4. I had no big traumas or anything like this. I have a very good life, and I have no idea why I'm here.
It's a fortunate birth indeed.
And
If you have no trauma and you have no idea why you're here and yet you are here,
yes,
this is a fortunate birth.
so it's not while silent sitting, but just before, I always get the feeling, do I really want to do this? Do I want to lose control? Because everything is great. I love my life.
Yep.
And I don't know how to dissolve this. I mean, while silent sitting, it is not there. I feel sometimes I feel bliss.
Yeah.
But before it's like I'm in control and I have a good life and everything is great. Why should I want to lose it?
Yeah, so the vasana is I am in control. Why would I want to do this? That's the form of doubt, which is the vasana. That is the vasana. Okay. So if you trust the fact that you are here, then you need to know directly that when this thought comes up, why am I here? Why am I doing this? That is the vasana that you are grappling with in this somehow very auspicious life that you have. That is still the vasana that's here. Okay? There is some doubt. You seem to be trusting the fact that you are here. Is this true?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so there's just some fear in going all the way.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it will dissolve by itself.
Let the vasana dissolve. This thing that you are grappling with is a tendency in the mind. So, if you really do have trust in this benevolent life, in this life that has brought you here, then just notice, this is the vasana. I am not this. I am not this. I think your curiosity is going to push you past that vasana, but you have to let it happen. You know, this does point out something, though, that it's said in Advaita that to live a pleasurable life is the more difficult situation for awakening. Hmm? For this very reason, yes. One is constantly going back and forth between life is fine, everything is good, all is well. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? The motivation for awakening in this moment seems kind of tenuous. It seems like I can't understand why I'm doing this, right? My life is good, everything is good, what am I doing? This kind of, when the vasanas tend toward the pleasant, it can be very sticky.
And is it on? Hello? And the point you don't like the unknown, what will be there after. So this unknowingness is
Yeah, but this is also has its foundation in the pleasant. Because my life is good now, because it's simple, it's fairly easy, things are kind of going along, humming along on their own. I'm reluctant to do anything that might upset that apple cart, right? I'm reluctant to ask these questions because everything's good, you know. So, yeah, this is a sticky situation. So just know that that's there. Please understand, I'm not encouraging you to suffer in your life in order you can wake up. You know, suffering in your life in order you can wake up. This is not what's being recommended. There will be a certain amount of vasana, a certain amount of high and low in most lives. Just allow what is to be there, right? Don't choose either to suffer for the sake of awakening or this other. The destiny that you have is based on the prarabdha karma that you came into this life for. So, you know, if you have a difficult life, if you have physical problems, mental problems, whatever, you have a difficult life, just understand that this is something it's a phase. It may last a long time, but it's what you're passing through out of necessity. If you are in this life and you have a very pleasant life and a very easy life, this is also based on some previous coming of karmic fruit is coming. The difficult thing about having a very pleasant life is you don't know, if you don't do this recognition of the self now, if you don't understand who you are now while your life is pleasant, will you do it if your next life is difficult? So, the motivation for someone whose life is very pleasant is use this pleasant time to come to understand who you are, because this will be the lasting quality that goes forward if there should be another life. Yeah? This will be the lasting quality that goes forward. And this is true whether your tendency is toward pleasant or your tendency is toward unpleasant. So do the work now, knowing that you are already free. Liberation is here. Liberation is possible for you if you don't think you are experiencing it now. And just do the work. Don't look at the quality of your life now. This is the cultivation of dispassion, the cultivation of sadhana itself in some way. So enjoy your very pleasant life, but understand when you are using that pleasantness to run away from, sidestep, or try to go around the uncertainty that you're experiencing if you let go of control and you surrender everything into the Supreme. For you, the difficulty of surrendering the pleasant or a pleasurable life, this is a challenge. This is really a challenge. Enjoy your life, but let go. So I want to get to this note. This one I think we can. This says, how can we avoid that the who am I question won't be only a mental process. So again, the who am I question can very easily become a mental process. It can just be that you are just repeating this, but it's an empty situation. The way to avoid this is to come into the center of being before you actually inquire. And this is the purpose of the question, am I aware? If you ask yourself, am I aware? In that gap between am I aware and when the mind or the heart says yes, there is that small space of pure awareness. Not that you would necessarily want or be able to label it. It's just that you feel in that moment, if the question is asked, are you aware? There's an immediate cessation of everything else outside and a very intense, very direct, very concentrated looking. And that comes before the yes. So it's in that moment that you are able to center in the center of being, not in the mind. Then you have the space to ask the question, who is this I? And not have it be a mental exercise. Because the question, am I aware, centers you in the heart of being in a way that you are anchored for a few seconds. And you can ask this question, who or what is aware here? To whom am I referring when I say I? You can ask this question in a little bit more clear state than if you come into you're in the middle of your activity, you're busy, you're on your computer or something, and you say, who am I? You're coming from mental state to mental state. So take this moment just to ask yourself very clearly, am I aware? Notice it. Be present as that moment of that recognition of awareness. And now ask the question. And this is the way to stop the question, who am I, from just becoming a purely mental activity or exercise. Okay? Is this your question? Okay, I have another one and then I'll come to you. Okay? So this person writes, when I come to some teachers in Vedanta, it's as if it is not good to enjoy and see the beauty all around. Well, I think we just talked about that, right? How about the difficulty that pleasure, pleasant, as a tendency to be seeking that as a constant thing, the difficulty of this in terms of understanding something about who you are. If you are always pursuing pleasure, beauty, whatever. We're not saying that's bad. We're just saying that there's a limit to what you can understand through that path. I heard there is a more tantric way, also in Vedanta, where it's more to surrender your heart to what is. Yes. Or to see good everywhere and in everybody. Will you say more about these two different paths? Oh, I think I already answered this in the first question, right? When we talked about the unreal? Yes? If you want, you can tell me whose question is this and tell me whether or not that was answered in this question of the unreal. What is unreal as compared to everything is God? So, was that question answered for you in that conversation, or is there something more specific? Let me finish this so everybody knows what you were thinking. It says, will you say more in this about these two different paths, as it's a heartbreaker to have to deny life and get to the absolute? Okay. So, the one thing I can say about that, if you want to add, do you want to add more now, or should I refer? Okay. So, the one thing I can say about that is this teaching that you have come to, that you say is part of Vedanta, you say it's heartbreaking to have to deny life to get to the absolute. So actually, that's a misunderstanding of what's being pointed at in the teaching of renunciation. Okay? In a lot of paths you can follow in Vedanta, there will be this element, you can say, of self-denial. This is also true in Buddhism. This tendency toward asceticism can be a form of self-denial. But all of that, as much as it proliferates in the world, even to today, but it's beginning to break down now today, is that there has been a misunderstanding that what we talk about when we're talking about renunciation is renunciation of bodily pleasure, of beauty, of, it's like go live in a cave and, wear a loincloth and, don't be at all in the world, this kind of renunciation. But this is really a misunderstanding of what the principle of renunciation is about. The principle of renunciation is about renouncing the belief that there is an I, that there is a separate sense of self. It's not about the lifestyle, right? But it is about knowing that whatever experiences you are having, you are not this. This is the place where Advaita sits on the foundation of Vedanta, right? Advaita says not just the end, which is kind of what Vedanta means, is the end of seeking, but not just the end of everything, rather the understanding that everything is God. So we come back to this again. Yes?
Yeah.
Yes. So, the better way to look at this in terms of sadhana or spiritual practice is to notice within your own experience, does this belief, thought, activity, sadhana, seeking, does this lead in this moment, in direct perception and experience, to an experience to the revelation of peace, to the revelation of liberation, to the revelation of freedom? Am I feeling that? Am I living that? To the revelation of happiness? Or does this way of thinking, being, emoting, and so on lead me into chaos and into confusion? Then you have a very clear understanding of what needs to be renounced, and it's attachment, right? It's the belief in I. It's not any particular form.
Yeah, because it's sometimes it's just sound like, when you suddenly have this presence of beauty or quietness, that it's...
Fall into that.
Yeah, and some other teachers say, no, it doesn't matter, it's not that. And then it's nearly heartbreaking.
Yes, okay, yes, I understand. So it is true that it is not that.
Yeah.
Okay? Understand that it is true. It is not that. You are not going to realize who you are by simply falling into beauty. Or into that moment of presence as... Yeah. The reason is, though, because at the place that you're expressing, the place that you're practicing, that is still a circumstance which is coming and then going. So that pleasure, that beauty, is not sustained. Yes, which is what we were talking about here. It's not sustained. And you will come back to the attachments, the vasanas, the tendencies that were there before. So understand that that's what they're saying to you. It's not that.
Okay.
They're not saying when you are sitting there and you find yourself in the presence of supreme peace and calm, and you feel in that moment as though you are in the presence of God, or whatever it is for you, however it manifests, in the beauty of nature, that you shouldn't sink into it. I say sink into it. If it's destined to go, it will go. Let what comes come, let what goes go. This is Bhagavan's teaching. So we cleave to that, we trust him and his guidance, and we just keep going. And we don't trouble ourselves if we fall out of beauty, we fall out of peace.
Yeah.
We don't trouble ourselves over it.
Yeah. Because it's as if the expansion gets bigger. Also, to take the things that is not so good, the awareness is still there.
Yes.
But it was just like the feeling, it was like totally wrong.
Yeah.
But I feel it's more the path of, I don't know, the heart, or but still be aware not to be identified.
Yes, but
Yeah.
okay, so now I am going to revert back to what those other teachers said. You need understand you are trying to follow some idea of what awakening or what awakened life will be like.
I got confused down here.
Yeah. So, yeah, you did say that here at the bottom. Probably I'm just confused. This idea that I am confused is also another block,
Yeah.
right? This is another mental block or vasana or tendency. So understand that you are not confused, not you as the heart. You are that which is aware of confusion being present in the mind at this moment. It's important that you be very, very clear with yourself about these things. If you say, I am confused, you are perpetuating this vasana. You are giving it fuel. You are adding momentum to that conditioning. It needs to be that which is aware, that which I am in this moment. I am that which is aware that this vasana of confusion, this vasana of fear, this vasana of fear is present. And this is the way to allow and enable this me-ness to dissolve. As we take away this attachment to I am. I am comes in every form, doesn't it? I am liberated. I am free. I am confused. I am fearful. I am comes in every form. You know that. Now you must remind yourself when you recognize that a certain kind of tendency is here, that this is a tendency. And I am that which is aware. And go toward the source, go toward awareness, then go deeper into that. Who am I referring to when I say I? This is the way of inquiry.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good. Very good.
When we hear about this previous vasanas or prarabdha karma, so why should I suffer or face some troubles in this life because of the previous vasanas? Is it not logical or injustice with respect to the eternal? Because I will be suffering and I will be facing all the traumas which I was not conscious about my previous life.
Yes.
I never know what I was and what I did.
Yes.
So what is a solution or answer for this?
So, the solution and answer to this is to stop asking this question. Why? Why? And rather, to understand that there is some foundation in consciousness, in awareness, which is brought you here in order that you can understand something about who you are. Not so you can suffer because of previous lives. If you understand the whole movement and motion of vasanas, they rise in tendencies. They rise to bring us into contact with that which makes us suffer, makes us feel as though we are not good enough or that something is wrong in our lives. They bring us to this position where we can say, is liberation possible? If it is, how? I am not interested in, I can spend a lifetime suffering. I probably have spent dozens of lifetimes, if not more, suffering. I may be here because of some past karma that I engaged in that brought me into this physical body. But understand that your physical body, you personally right now, this physical body you have, is sitting here in satsang. So there has been grace also in your life. Now you need to transcend both the pain and the pleasure of having a physical body by asking the question, who am I? I know I am not the pleasure. I know I am not the pain. I know I am not the prarabdha karma of this body. Okay, then who am I? Who am I referring to? And this is the way out, because all of the sages agree over thousands of years that the only way to escape this, what is referred to in Vedanta, in Advaita, as this trap of karma, the only way to escape that is to obliterate karma. The only way to be done with karma is to realize that there is no I. There is no me who's having this experience. So how do I do that? That becomes the question. So I encourage you, don't pay so much attention to this question, why? Pay more attention to the grace which has brought you here. Put this question, why, at the feet of the Master, and ask, am I aware? Who is this I which is aware? Go back to the source. This will bring you home quickly. Hello.
It's also a follow-up question, a little bit from the question of the other day and some answers of today. And it's related to the fact that the other time you mentioned that I was talking a bit about actions that we feel called to do, sort of, if this is calling us divine plan, let's call it like that. And you were saying, I'm skeptical about that. However, when you say that we didn't choose to come here, but we were called, that feels like a divine plan, right? And
Okay.
and then the question is like, why these other actions should not be, while these, how is it that this is also not a vasana, a tendency of being here, sitting and...
Again, I'm going to refer you to the answer earlier, and that is, does this lead you, this behavior, activity, this sense of calling, whether you call it divine or not, that's maybe what I was trying to point at, is you can label something divine if you want, but
arbitrary. Okay.
Yeah, it's arbitrary. It's according to what your mind determines is divine.
Yes.
So it's relatively arbitrary. But you can ask yourself in this moment, if I answer this call, do I enter into a sense, a deeper sense, a greater sense, you can say? Because understanding you are still the personal at this moment, right? That you're asking this question.
Yes.
Does this lead me into this deeper feeling of love, connectedness, liberation, and freedom to answer this call? Or does it lead me more deeply into fear, confusion, or some other kind of vasana? This is not to say that whatever you are responding to may not lead you into some form of chaos, and it will still be what you are referring to, not me, but you are referring to as a divine calling. You still will follow your heart.
Yes.
You will always follow your heart, whether it leads you into chaos or it leads you into the supreme truth, because the ultimate truth is that everything is God. Everything is leading us into the liberation of being, consciousness, and bliss.
Indeed. And sometimes I feel from your words that it seems that being here, it's necessarily, in a way, the way to order, while moving and acting through the world is responding to a call from vasana. But in a way I feel your heart can be in both or in none. Like there are moments to move and moments to stay. Maybe for somebody a life is to stay, for somebody a life is to move, but they can be both if we want to arbitrarily call it divine plan or following the heart.
So the question is not, does life contain both stillness and movement? The question is not, is it possible to experience both pleasure and pain? The question is, who? You are saying, if I understand you right, you are saying, I experience this, I experience that, I know stillness, I know movement, and I am saying, really? Keep going. When there is stillness and movement and no one home, there's no one here, that is a very different experience from, oh, I think I will go over here and do this because it seems like a good idea, seems pleasurable, it seems like, or I will go over here to avoid that. This is coming from this position of the personal, or from the position of the ego. So all I'm asking you to do is just check in. The way we check in is that when we feel this impulse to do something or not do something, the very first thing that we do, the very first question we ask is who? So that we are always looking at the empty nature of both stillness and movement. If we are looking at the empty nature of stillness and movement, and then the heart is pulling, then we move without ego. And then we are moving in the way of what you refer to as divine plan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So it's just that moment to check in. It's not to say this is good or that's bad, do it this way and don't do it that way. It's whatever you're feeling, whatever you are drawn to do, whether it's to be sitting on the mountain in stillness, or it's to be in movement of some kind, learning something, going somewhere, doing something, meeting someone. That's not what that's not our concern here. Our concern here is to find out answer this question, who is being referred to? And when that question is answered, and all the doubt and fear and confusion is resolved, stillness and movement don't stop happening. But they happen with a kind, I don't know how else to say this, they happen with a kind of purity that isn't tainted by some vasana or some tendency that's related to the personality. Okay?
Yes, I see that. So, in a way, you're saying that there is a step before from the movement or stillness that is realizing who am I, and so the reason why you say we are called here is that
So
it's,
more
let's say,
than,
a good place to realize it.
I would say more than saying there's a step, I would say remain wakeful in the center of being, so that whether you move or don't move, whether that impulse is to sit still or to move in some way, from the center of being, you have some insight into whether this is me moving or whether this is just a spontaneous moving. And this is not a thinking process. When you become adept at sitting in the heart of being as awareness itself, it can be felt. You don't need to know through consequences. Oh, not such a good idea that was. You don't need to know it through consequences. You can feel it in the center of being that this is ego moving. This is not the divine, as you called it,
Yes.
moving. You can feel this. So the solution is not to be adding a step. The solution is to settle in the heart of being first, become firm in the center of the heart of being, and then allow whatever flows to flow. Or have all the experiences you want to have, and you will understand something about what is important to you and what isn't important to you. And this won't be coming from you, this will be coming from the heart of being. You already are the heart of being. The mind is what masks that. This belief that there is I am the body idea, right? That I am separate. This is what masks that and hides that. So this is just experience is a wonderful teacher, but this is another form of experience, and that is to just understand that if you settle in the heart of being, then whatever flows out of that presence is not a problem. All is well.
I got something. But if we move in the world still with the first reason to move, to reply to this question, rather than necessarily sit for years in the mountain or go to satsang every day or whatever, that is still the process, right? I mean, it's still the same process as being here.
Yes, it's still the process. Yes.
Just, it's a matter of realizing I'm not going to the place X to do X, but I'm going with this inquiry and I'm doing this action just to, is this action lead me to my inquiry? Is it making me, is it coherent with the search, or it's something that is just going to distract me? But then once you're rooted in this idea, whether you move or you're here is the same.
Yes.
You're saying just to make me...
I'm going to say this. You and I have had this conversation so many times that I'm ready to stop talking to you about it. That's what I'm willing to say right at this moment.
Okay.
Because in the way that it appears in our conversations, you are still trying to find a way to justify what it is you want to do.
Yes.
And I am just saying, go do that. Fine. Get back to me later. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
You know I say that from the heart, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
I have quite the opposite experience to what somebody shared about having a pleasant life with no. So from small, I've experienced a lot of suffering.
Yes.
And at a certain stage in life, I started dealing with it, going on the way of therapy and psychology and all of that. And
Speak more into the microphone.
Okay. So, so even going into the awareness, into the stillness, into the bliss, then suffering is waiting somehow.
So it appears, yes.
It appears as if it's just this, and there's these things, the suffering is there still. So it's.
And then the question is what? I understand the observation. Is there a question?
Yes, I don't know how to formulate it. Is there just an end to this?
Yes.
Suffering?
Yes. There's an end to this suffering in the mind and in the life of experience. You know, if you're chronically ill, you have a lifelong history of chronic illness or something like that. That's prarabdha karma of the body. So I don't know what you're referring to when you say I've had a very difficult life, but that is prarabdha karma of the body. If you're going to move forward now, you need to understand that that makes no difference in the reality of who you are, and ask the question, who is it that suffers, or who is it that experiences these moments of bliss and then falls back into, actually it's the fear of suffering that falls back into this fear of suffering, or this anticipation of suffering.
Because it's as if the fear is there, it's just not ending, it's just...
For whom? It's not ending for whom? Can you answer that? It's not ending for whom?
It's this idea. This...
No, I mean directly, it's not ending for whom? Isn't your mind saying, if I say it's not ending for whom, isn't there a small voice inside you, or maybe a big one in your mind, that says me? It's not any for me.
Yes, yes.
This is who you have to find. This is what you have to find out. Who is this me that has these kind of thoughts? You have to keep going. And you say, is it never ending? I say, no. You say, will it end? Yes. How do I know that? Look at the tradition that we're following. Every single being who has awakened into the realization of the self has understood that everything that came before that moment was a dream. That is one of the definitions of liberation and awakening. It's waking up from the dream. What dream? The dream of me. It doesn't mean that the prarabdha karma of the body doesn't continue to go on. Every body has to go through what it goes through. Every body will eventually disintegrate and die. What does not die is the awareness itself, the eternal awareness itself. The foundation, that which is here as every single being here. That's what we all have in common. It's not the country we're from, or our financial status, or our relationship status, or our, it's our gender. It's not that. What we all have in common is the answer to this question: are you aware? Anybody say no? No. Everyone says yes. This is the common thing. So go toward that. Even when the thought is, I don't want to go back to that suffering. I'm not this thought. I'm not this thought. I'm not this conflict, whatever it is. I'm not that suffering. I am not that trauma. I am that which is aware in this moment. So, yes, please. Again, you have to have some faith in the teaching, some faith in the master. And you have to say, I'm willing to bet everything in. I'm all in on this bet. Right? This is what I was saying to him. You have to be willing to say, I'm all in. And we do that through faith, and we do it through persistence, and we do it through dispassion toward the vasanas as they are rising. To be dispassionate toward the vasanas also means to be compassionate toward the vasanas, compassionate toward the one who suffers, compassionate toward this sense of me who has suffered greatly over many years or many decades. So we have to bring this whole understanding that while there is nothing happening, in truth, as long as there is the appearance of something happening, remain compassionate toward that being who believes that something is happening, and tell her it's okay, all is well. I am that which is aware, not that which I am aware of. And then you can keep coming back and sinking into the heart. And slowly, if you are compassionate toward this belief that, there is a fear here that I'm going to fall back into this suffering or into this conflict or whatever. If you are compassionate toward that one, all of this will dissolve more quickly. That's why we talk about these elements of persistence, right? Compassion, emptiness. Yeah, these are the qualities that help us when these vasanas are rising, for us to say, not this, I am not this, and really mean that, and then follow it with the open heart which embraces all of life the way that it is, not the way we would like it to be, and to know that that field of awareness contains within it everything we need in this moment to understand, who am I? Now I not only can't push anything away, I don't want to push anything away. I say, come. If there's a demon present, sit right here. Because the heart of compassion is open. Every single being has demons of one sort or another, even the ones whose demons are pleasure that's binding them and making it impossible or difficult for them to see beyond the pleasure or the pleasantness of life. So, whatever the demon is, welcome it. You don't need to become it. You need to know you are not it. This is sadhana. Very, very nice to be with you all today. Very, very, very good questions all around. And yeah, I wish you all a beautiful, beautiful day. Much love. Hari Om. Tat Sat.